Missed by 8 Inches, authored by Lionel D'Souza. This is one such tale, a saga of two friends from a remote Indian town, whose journey takes them far beyond the familiar, into the very heart of a war zone, managing the facilities of the U.S. Army in war zones. The narrative centers around the tragic demise of one friend, with the other wrongfully accused of leading him into the war zone, resulting in his untimely death and being unjustly labeled. This is not just a story of loss and accusation, but a testament to the unyielding strength of friendship. It is about the kind of bond that endures the harshest of realities, supports and uplifts even in the face of adversity. This tale is a tribute to the moments of solidarity, the laughter shared in brief respites from danger, and the memories that become lifelines in the darkest of times. It is dedicated to all those who work in war zones without any weapons to defend themselves, to the army contractors who sacrifice their lives to the tough jobs at the war base, holding their hearts on a thread. It is for those unsung warriors, whose stories of valor and sacrifice often go untold. In the pages that follow, you will journey with these two friends through the trials and tribulations of war, witness the strength of their bond, and feel the weight of their sacrifices. This is their story, a story of friendship, courage, and the indomitable human spirit. Please watch the Chapter 1 video to help better understand Chapter 2. A brief synopsis of Chapter 1 introduces the narrator and his 6 Indian colleagues working in Saudi Arabia. A cricket match in no man's land sets the tone for camaraderie, cultural clashes, and the narrator's bond with childhood friend Andrew. We are now moving to Chapter 2, titled First Time Pact Broken from Missed by 8 Inches, authored by Lionel D'Souza. I arrived in Saudi Arabia ahead of Andrew. Our departure from India was a poignant moment, marked by a heartfelt farewell with my dear friend. As we stood on the brink of this significant change, I promised Andrew that I would do everything in my power to help him join me in Saudi Arabia. This was no casual assurance. It was a solemn vow, deeply rooted in the profound bond of our friendship, nurtured over many years. Andrew and I had shared countless memories and experiences, growing up together and supporting each other through thick and thin. Our friendship was more than just a connection. It was a brotherhood forged in the fires of shared challenges and triumphs. As I embarked on this new journey, the thought of leaving Andrew behind was bittersweet. Yet, the hope of reuniting in a foreign land kept my spirits high. During our school days, Andrew and I were nicknamed the terrorists. Science was my least favorite subject, especially since the teacher was my cousin's wife. She was strict with me, often punishing, beating, and even expelling me from the class. Each evening, she would report my school behavior to my father, and he would continue the discussion with his stick. Andrew was a pillar of moral and emotional support for me, always standing by my side. He would defend me, and eventually, he too was labeled as notorious, accused of being negatively influenced by my company. Despite explicit instructions from his parents not to communicate with me at school, Andrew found a way to stay in touch by discreetly passing me paper notes, to which I would respond in the same manner. Consequently, I was relegated to the back of the classroom, adjacent to a barred window overlooking the walkway. The walkway is where I sometimes sat during punishments. Initially, I shared this space with 3 others with whom I had little connection. However, fortune smiled when Andrew was also moved to the back, under the teacher's assumption that 1 white sheep could reform 3 black sheep. With Andrew's company on the last bench beside me, we ceased passing notes and began conversing directly. My punishments were escalating, and my tolerance was waning. I resolved to give the teacher a lesson of her own in the classroom. The scheme involved igniting a firecracker during my cousin's wife's teaching. Andrew was in on the plan. We meticulously planned, sketching the classroom layout, synchronizing the timing with the teacher's entry, and deciding who would light and toss the firecracker. If only I had devoted as much effort to my studies, I might have ended up at NASA and not Saudi. We decided that Monday at 11 a.m. would be the day. Andrew was tasked with bringing the matches, while I was responsible for the firecracker. The plan was for Andrew to light the match, for me to ignite the firecracker, and then to throw it out the window, feigning ignorance. On Sunday, after church, I bought 2 firecrackers from a shop, costing me 10 rupees, which I had stolen from my father's pocket the previous Saturday. It was the 9th grade, Section C, and the period transitioned at 10:35 a.m. Wilma, teacher, my cousin's wife, entered the classroom, prompting us all to stand. I was sweating, but Andrew seemed even more nervous. We had previously engaged in mischief like breaking furniture, stealing pots, and writing on the whiteboard, but this felt different. We all sat down when instructed by the teacher. The clock above her head ticked away, with each minute feeling significant. On Sunday evening the previous day, Andrew and I conducted a trial run with a firecracker in the open fields while cycling. I had taken 1 firecracker out of the 2, and Andrew brought the matches. We simulated the classroom scenario with our bicycles side by side, standing on them as if the teacher had entered, then sitting after a minute. Despite the cool breeze, Andrew was sweating profusely. When I inquired, he admitted to being nervous. We pretended it was 11 a.m., and I signaled to Andrew. He fumbled for the matchbox, eventually finding it in his shorts pocket, containing just 3 matches. I held the firecracker's fuse towards Andrew, as if under a desk but actually under the bicycle handle. The first matchstick was extinguished by the breeze. I instructed Andrew on how to shield the flame, but the second match also went out. With only 1 matchstick left, Andrew focused intently, but the breeze snuffed it out in a fraction of a second, ending our rehearsal. What to do next was the question. I suggested to Andrew that we pretend to light the firecracker to complete our rehearsal, as my patience was wearing thin. Andrew mimicked lighting a match, and in slow motion, I pretended to light the firecracker and threw it into the fields. Although 1 firecracker was wasted, we learned several lessons. 1. Andrew must remember which pocket holds the matchbox. 2. We should have a full box of matches. 3. Andrew needs to practice shielding the match from the wind. 4. I must ensure the firecracker is lit before throwing it at the angle of the window. In the classroom on the day of the deed, we opened our books, and the teacher began checking the previous day's homework. She would typically review all 38 students' work, but Andrew and I hadn't completed ours, which meant we might end up sitting outside in the veranda, exactly where the firecracker was meant to land. The clock showed 10:49 a.m., and the teacher had just finished with the first 2 rows. Our plan seemed to be falling apart, but then, unexpectedly, the teacher skipped the last 3 rows and headed to the blackboard. I felt a wave of relief, though Andrew seemed less pleased, preferring the idea of sitting outside over being complicit in our scheme. The clock on the wall had advanced to 10:56 a.m., and I signaled to Andrew to retrieve the matchbox. He had combined 2 boxes of matchsticks into 1, resulting in an overstuffed matchbox. When he tried to open it, the force caused the entire compartment of sticks to spill onto the floor. Fortunately, no one noticed the scattered matchsticks, and I quickly swept them up with my feet and picked them. At 10:59 a.m., Andrew was visibly nervous, sweating tense, and making anxious noises, whispering to abandon the plan. I was determined to proceed and said a prayer, Our Father, Hail Mary, Holy Mary, with the intention of saying a full rosary 5 times once the mission was successfully accomplished. At 11 a.m., with Andrew unable to participate, I took the initiative. I pulled the firecracker from my pocket and placed it on the second layer of my desk. I then took a matchstick, checked for any wind, which fortunately there was none, and noticed the fan was also off. I raised my eyebrows to glance at the teacher, who was preoccupied with writing notes on the blackboard, her preferred task. After writing, she would typically have us copy the notes, giving her a chance to relax and start asking questions for which we had no answers or out-of-syllabus questions to make us feel dumb of not knowing the answers. I struck the matchstick, which ignited with a small puff of smoke. I then touched the flame to the firecracker's fuse, and it caught fire. In a moment of indecision, I contemplated whether to throw both the matchstick and the firecracker or just the firecracker. With time running out, I dropped the matchstick to the floor and clutched the firecracker in my hand. But at that moment, the teacher turned towards me, catching me in the act. The teacher was perplexed, and so was I. Andrew was speechless until he suddenly yelled, "Throw it!" Acting on instinct, I grabbed the firecracker with my left hand, despite being right-handed, aimed for the window and threw it. Unfortunately, my luck failed me. The firecracker hit one of the window bars and fell back into the classroom. As it hit the floor, the Wilma teacher shouted, "Hey you, what are you doing there?" In the chaos that followed, three things happened simultaneously. Andrew stood up and bolted. I ducked under the table covering my ears. And a loud bang echoed through the whole school, filling the classroom with white smoke. I was relieved that no one was hurt, but I was at a complete loss for what to do next, having been caught red-handed by the teacher. I glanced over at Andrew, who kept repeating the same words over and over, "I don't know anything, I didn't do anything." Though no one was injured, the gravity of the situation was undeniable. I was expelled from school and faced a harsh punishment at home. During the questioning, I even admitted to stealing 10 rupees from my father's pocket, which only added to my troubles. Our bond was one of mutual support through all of life's moments, joy or sorrow, laughter or pain, sunshine or rain. Yet, when the moment of truth arrived, Andrew broke our pact. I had believed he would share the responsibility equally, but despite the pressure, I remained resolute, never revealing his involvement to the school authorities or my parents. End of Chapter 2. Subscribe to the channel and press the bell icon for more updates on the next chapters. Thank you for listening and subscribing.